Okay, folks, like promised, I think it would have been unfair if I had just given you an hour-long critique of Heroes in Crisis and saying everything that's wrong with it without telling you how I would have made it better. Now, I subtitled this How I Would Have Written It. It's really more along the lines of how I would have edited it, because honestly, I don't think I would have come up with the whole story on my own. That would be patting myself on the back just way too much in the hypothetical sense. But had I been handed this script by Tom King, if I had been handed this treatment by Tom King and basically been asked to take a look at it, here are the ways that I would have rearranged things and written things differently so that it would have been a story that made a heck of a lot more sense. And like I said, well, you can go back to my earlier video on it to see all of the critiques I made as to why this turned out to be a bad series. Well, the first thing, of course, that I would have done is make sure that the ad copy didn't give the game away right from the beginning. I mean, I could not believe that whoever wrote the ad copy just basically said, well, I'm going to tell the reader everything that's in the book. Like, okay, no, you never do that. You never make it so that when the reader buys the book, the reader learns nothing more than he or she could have learned from the ad copy. Here's what I would have put as the ad copy. In the middle of the American heartland, there is a house. Only superheroes know the house exists. Only superheroes know why the house exists. When over a dozen superheroes are discovered dead at the house, the superhero community must band together to solve the murders before the community's darkest secrets are revealed to the public. Now, I mean, we know there's a mass murder, of some sort, or at least there's a mass accident. Who the heck knows? But that's all you know, pretty much. There's a house. You wind up with a bunch of superheroes dead at the house, and now there has to be a solution before the community's secrets are exposed. Okay, great. I mean, that actually harkens back a little bit to Brad Meltzer's Identity Crisis, who killed Sue Dibney. So, going into Heroes in Crisis #1, and honestly, I would have just gone with these as the main covers. I don't think I would have bothered making these variant covers. I don't really care much for the whole variant cover experience. I don't know why people do. I mean, it's not bad if you're just giving people a few different choices among, here you can have cover A or cover B, and pick the one that floats your boat. But I like to have covers that really have something to do with the story, and these, to me, they fit pretty darn well. So I would have just gone with these as the main covers. So we start off with what Tom King originally put at the beginning or the end of issue 2. This would be the beginning of my issue 1. Lois Lane finds out that there has been a file released on the internet showing Arsenal confessing that he's an addict. And then she realizes that there must be something terribly wrong at Sanctuary. Now, I kind of toyed around with the idea of whether or not to just have it be a whistleblower file drop as before, but I think when I read over Arsenal's file drop, it looked as though he never revealed any secrets about anything other than himself, and he didn't reveal his own name. So I thought if a hero even was going to release this on the internet, it really wouldn't reveal anything except stuff about Arsenal himself. So basically, this person has just outed Arsenal to the world as a drug addict. So that is what I would go with for the first couple of pages, and then you would have Superman immediately streaking towards Sanctuary. And then here we have Sanctuary. We'll keep the scene having the Gristle from Blue Jay, the superhero who can shrink. This is where he's been killed and in his shrunken form, and so the birds are having a nice little feast on his corpse. We have Batman and Wonder Woman converging on Superman's position, where he sees all of the dead superheroes outside. He then goes into Sanctuary, where he finds not Arsenal, for one thing, okay? Arsenal doesn't need to die because Arsenal is the guy who just had his, addiction revealed on the internet. We want to see how this plays out now. How does a superhero who's just been outed as a drug addict get by now? He's got to go forward in the world now with this information having been released about him. So I don't want to kill him. I'm going to leave him alive. What about Wally West? No, you're not going to kill Wally West for exactly the reason I specified in the previous video. Wally West was just brought back in DC Universe Rebirth. He's kind of a linchpin character as far as this, or really, he should have been a linchpin character as far as bringing the old multiverse back goes. He was the one who exposed to the heroes that their history had been tampered with by some godlike outside force. So we don't want him, but we do need to have a speedster because, the way that Tom King wrote the story, it really takes a speedster in order to be able to go through this kind of trauma and set events in motion the way that things went. Well, thankfully, the New 52 has given us a different Wally West. This is Wallace West, apparently. I didn't really read too much about his stories, but he is a Kid Flash in the New 52. He's kind of a cousin to Wally West. They were both named after the same grandfather. And so he will be the person who is discovered rather than Wally West. It's going to be Wallace West, and hopefully I will remember to say Wallace West throughout the remainder of this video. So, we also find that the Sanctuary androids have been killed, or destroyed, disassembled, whatever. And we have Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman basically talking about the fact that this was a place developed to help them, and and they basically make it a little bit more clear, since we don't have Booster Gold in any of this to basically explain to us what it all is going on. We just basically have Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman explaining how Sanctuary was built with Kryptonian technology to be a house of therapy for heroes who are in some sort of distress, who are experiencing PTSD or other mental traumas that they needed to get out of their system. So basically, one of the things that I like, especially about my retreatment of this story, is that we don't have anything to do with Booster Gold or Harley Quinn in any of this mess. And part of the reason for that is that I would never have made them my prime suspects in the first place. They don't make any sense because they don't have the power to pull this off, and they don't really have the history. Well, of course, Harley Quinn's insane, but that's kind of obvious. And Booster Gold, I mean, why is he necessarily going to be the traumatized one? Instead, why don't we have a couple of heroes who are completely traumatized just on account of their own backgrounds? And for those, I picked a couple who are coming up. And basically, one of the last things that I would hit on is the fact that because Sanctuary doesn't keep any records, they have no way of knowing who did this. They don't know who was there, except for the dead bodies who were around them. They know all the dead were there, but they don't have any way of knowing who survived, if anybody. There's no recordings of people at the place. So how are they going to find out who it is that they could even suspect? Well, thankfully, that's going to happen for them, because in the last few pages, or the last couple of pages in the book, in issue 1, we're going to see Raven returning to Titan's Tower. And as she returns to Titan's Tower, she's going to be gathering all the Titans saying, "Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, you have to help me. He's coming to kill me." And they're like, "Who?" And it's Captain Atom. So Raven and Captain Atom are going to be the prime suspects in my version, because Raven's got her soul power. She's the daughter of Trigon. She's got more than enough mental trauma there. Captain Atom, he's been bounced forward years in the future. He's got just kind of a detachment from reality itself. So this is the perfect pair to me to make the prime suspects. And so we leave this issue with Captain Atom converging on Titan's Tower, presumably to kill Raven, who is the last person he needs to kill from the Sanctuary. Because that's what she's going to tell everyone, is that he killed everyone at Sanctuary. So we go into issue 2, and in issue 2, we're going to focus on the fact that you've got these... we're going to focus on the fact that Arsenal wakes up the next day and finds out that his history has been released onto the internet. And, he thought Sanctuary was a safe place to unload. He thought Sanctuary was where he could communicate his trauma. So now he feels terribly betrayed by the trinity of heroes who assured him that Sanctuary was safe. And so that's where we start off, is with him discovering that his history has been released to the internet. and now it's public knowledge. So what is he going to do about it? How is he going to react? How is the public going to react? That's a facet of the story that I think is a good addition to it. Now we have Captain Atom converging on Raven and the Teen Titans at Titan's Tower, and there is a massive battle that takes place between those two, maybe even to the point of, destroying the tower for the most part. And interspersed with that, we can have Captain Atom and Raven's backstories as far as their traumas and things that they deal with in a much more detailed format, but interspersed throughout the fight. And then finally, at the last portion, we would have Arsenal, storming into the Hall of Justice and basically saying, "Hey, what the hell? And what's going on?" And then the next thing they find is that, "Look, Arsenal, you're not the only one. Wonder Woman's stuff has just been dropped onto the internet." And one of the things that they'll notice about these two things, I don't know, in this issue or maybe in a future issue, is that Arsenal never reveals his secret identity, and Wonder Woman doesn't have a secret identity. So one of the things that they'll notice is, well, if this was a villain who was doing this, wouldn't they go for one of the files that had a secret identity on it and really ruin somebody's life? But instead, they've gone for two characters who don't have, or two superheroes who don't have secret identities. So doesn't it make more sense to think maybe it is a hero who is actually doing this? And then they would find out about the fight between Captain Atom and Raven and the Teen Titans that's going on at Titan's Tower, and they'd fly to the rescue and kind of go through and figure all that stuff out. So that's when Captain Atom and Raven would be captured and both taken back to the Hall of Justice, where Batman would then be discussing in issue 3 the fact that this is something anonymous. This is something that he himself has used at times. And maybe this is where they would discuss the fact that, it does make sense that it would be a hero who did this rather than a villain, because if you just revealed Batman's secret identity, I mean, all of a sudden, that's a major explosion. If you were to just reveal Superman's secret identity, that would be a major explosion. But basically, the two revelations that have been dropped onto the internet are revelations that basically keep everybody's identities concealed. So it seems more probable that a hero did this than a villain. But the question now becomes, which of the two heroes that they have in custody, Captain Atom or Raven, is the more likely candidate? And of course, we'll have the discussion, probably sans this, softcore porn picture of Lois Lane, between her and Superman about whether or not to release this as a news expose. They really kind of have to do it because they are reporters. They can't just keep the news concealed for their own personal benefit. But, it's kind of, do we really want superheroes known to have these, mental health issues and stuff like that? And meanwhile, you would have a comparison done between Captain Atom and Raven about their views of how the murders took place. And in Captain Atom's view, he would see Raven just basically extract Wally's soul and shatter it, leaving his body intact. And then Raven would see Captain Atom just blasting Wally through the chest with a bolt of quantum energy. Now, since they have Wally's body, what they'll know from that is that, well, Raven's story doesn't hold up because, if Captain Atom's blasted Wally through the chest with a bolt of energy, why is Wally's body untouched in that respect? So automatically it seems to be that Raven is the killer. But Captain Atom, being able to view Wally's body, and since Captain Atom is in tune with things that have moved through time, he's able to see that Wally's body is 5 days older than it should be. He can tell that Wally's body has been taken back through time. So that would propel us into next issue. Next issue would give us both the expose of, that has been released and the superhero press conference, which is basically trying to reassure the public about, it shouldn't be a concern to you that superheroes have mental health needs just like everybody else. Meanwhile, you would have Captain Atom and Raven, now that they both know that there's something kind of fishy and that Raven doesn't have the kind of time travel powers that it would take to pull off, a body heist like she did in some way, shape, or form. And now that they know that Wallace, I'm sorry, that his body is 5 years older than it should be, which means he should still be alive. And so the Trinity, Superman, Wonder Woman, and Batman, they should work with Captain Atom and with Raven and with the Flash. Let's get the Flash involved in that, since hey, it's his nephew that died here. Let's get them all together, and with their combined powers, they should be able to track down Wallace West, who they find in a field, basically confronting himself. And there's not going to be any poison ivy nonsense in this one. So you've got the two Wallace Wests, the one who's 5 days older and the one who's, just fresh off the murders or the accidental killings, as it were. And this is where Wallace would be killing himself if he gets his way. So, in the final issue of Heroes in Crisis, and notice that this has only taken 5 issues. This did not need to be a 9-issue slog. This is all taking place in 5 issues. We would open on the confrontation between Wallace West of 5 days ago and Wallace West 5 days later, and then they too would be talking it out. And basically, what I think would be interesting here is if Wallace 5 days later basically said, "I don't want to die," and Wallace from the day of the murders or the deaths says, "I'm going to kill you." And so now they're like chasing each other all around the field. And at the time that Wallace is doing this, he's also explaining to the heroes, because he's fast enough to do, 2 things at once. Maybe it's the 5-day older one who will be doing that. He's fast enough to explain to the heroes, here's what's going on. Or maybe he's communicating to this to Barry through the Speed Force or something like that. I mean, we'd figure something out. But the whole murder mystery unraveling thing would happen pretty much exactly the same way. The only portion that would actually be missing, because, Wallace would be fast enough to put all the data together and all that mess. The only thing that would be missing, once we got through all of the stuff about his, recapitulating all of the files that had been deleted and seeing all of the trauma that all of the heroes had experienced, and having that really break his mind and cause him to explode in a burst of Speed Force. And then he would, of course, go back and take Captain Atom and Raven, in this case, back into the holographic chamber so that they would each see the other kill Wallace. And then you would have this portion where Wallace goes into the future in order to pull the body, kill himself and then pull the body back to the past. Now, the only thing that's kind of a snag here is that in the original Heroes in Crisis, what's his name? Wally West uses Booster Gold's technology to jump into the future and kill himself and snag the body and bring it back into the past. Now, how does Wallace West, not having access to Booster Gold tech, go into the future? And one of the things that I was thinking of is it could be revealed here that Wallace West is actually more powerful than Barry Allen. He's more powerful in that he can, at will, pretty much, travel through time without the assistance of like a cosmic treadmill or something. So he's actually, in a way, faster than Barry, which makes him extremely dangerous, and it makes him extremely difficult for the superheroes to do anything to protect him from himself. Because remember, 5-day-old Wallace is trying to kill 5-day later Wallace, and it becomes a realization to them that they're not going to be able to stop him from killing himself. So what are they going to do? Because they don't want him to die. So we would have basically the Flash and Captain Atom and Raven combine all their powers in some way, shape, or form, so that at the moment that Wallace kills his future self, the quantum powers of Captain Atom kind of create this Schrodinger's cat effect, where you now have 2 Wallace Wests from 5 days later, one of whom is dead because he's been killed by his earlier self, but the other one who's still alive. He kind of knows he killed himself, but at the same time, he's still alive. And so while the one who is dead is dragged back to the past in order to close the loop, you have the one that's alive go to jail, and his fate is to be determined. And maybe you could have another issue or so kind of dealing with the court, kind of dealing with the mental health issues. How do you deal with a meta-human who's gone off the rails and he's not really responsible for his actions? Those kinds of things that could be like a Heroes in Crisis epilogue issue. But in the meantime, of course, Sanctuary would come back. Oh no, it wouldn't. No, it wouldn't, because because you could just have a speedster go and access the files again. Why the hell would you rebuild Sanctuary knowing that it's now got this glaring open flaw where you could have all these superhero files released onto the internet? And by the way, the future Wallace, who's still alive, he would go ahead and make sure that the heroes files don't no more of the heroes files get released to the internet, since it had been happening automatic without him. And that would be like one of the major impetuses to save his life, by the way, aside from just they don't want him to die in the first place. And then the last portion would be the fact that it's kind of a lamenting that Sanctuary had to go away, because now where do the heroes go for their mental health needs? And you kind of focus on Superman and the fact that it's like the public doesn't want them to have mental health needs because they're such powerful beings. How could they possibly be trusted? And that would be kind of the atmosphere that they're in now. There might be this kind of level of distrust about the superheroes now that they know that if the Flash goes out of control, he could kill a bunch of people. If there's all these other superheroes who have taken part in this Sanctuary and made use of the mental health therapy that was there available to them, how does that affect people's idea of superheroes after that? So that would be an interesting theme to explore. And I think these were all themes that just got shoved into a corner when the universe got rebooted for the sixth or seventh or eighth time. But anyway, that is how I myself would have written Heroes in Crisis, or edited it into a structure that I think would have made a lot more sense and been a lot more entertaining. Because let me tell you, 9 issues of that long, boring slogfest, it was just that was not my cup of tea. I think that whole story could have been told in 5 issues using characters that would have made some actual sense for a change. And that is that. There you have it. That is my version, and I'm sticking to it. Hope you enjoyed it. And if you haven't already gone back and seen how the original Heroes in Crisis turned out, please do go back to my previous video and check that out. It's a nice long critique of various elements that both artistic and writing wise could have been done a lot better in a DC comic, in a major DC comic event. I'm Mike Partika. Thanks again for watching. Please do subscribe if you haven't already, and I will talk to you later.